Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here, and we broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday. Nathan's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. John Stadtmiller's with me. He is the godfather of alternative radio. Welcome, John Stadtmiller.
Good morning, Vince Finelli. How are you?
Hey, John,
I got to tell you, I had to skip breakfast this morning. All I had was coffee because I was fresh out of scotch.
Yeah, I haven't seen you drink.
No, a lot of people haven't.
Yeah.
I
have not
I
seen.
have the same six-pack of beer, Stella Artois, in my refrigerator that I think I bought in October. I'm sorry, I did dip into it. I've got 4 bottles left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. A six-pack might last me a year. I don't know. I don't have a desire to have it. But, if we have friends over, yeah, sure.
Sure. I can remember, what was that around one of your expos that we had the crowd over to the house, and Larry Pratt was there, and John Moore, and, everybody you could get over there, and I brought a bottle of good bourbon over, and we all had a toast, and that was the only drink we had at your house.
Yeah. It was great. It was great having the gang here, and it's great having you here. And I miss seeing you, and hope that we get a chance to see you soon. John, you called, and I called you back, and we chatted on the phone, and you asked me about cows, and you said, "Boy, what's it like in these temperatures?" I'm paraphrasing, of course. What's it like in these temperatures? We were down to 1 degree, and you were concerned about the cows. And it's an interesting thing that you asked about that, because what our government has done is decided that they will pay us to make our animals' lives miserable. And here's what I mean. The Soil and Water Conservation District and the USDA, will pay farmers about 75% to fence their cows, their animals, mostly cows, out of the woods, out of the streams, out of ponds. All for keeping water quality allegedly better. But when you have cows that are standing in the middle of a field with no protection, no shade in the summer, no trees, no woods to get in out of the rain, out of the snow, out of the high winds, it's miserable for them. It's rough on them. And some of them die in those extreme conditions. So what we do is we don't participate with the USDA and the Soil and Water Conservation District, and we allow our cows to walk in whatever fields they want to. We rotate them from field to field to field so that they don't, graze in cow poop. But we let them go in the woods. And to answer your question on the air about these freezing 1 degree temperatures, we let them go into the woods where they're sheltered from the high winds. And you've seen the farm. You've seen how it's got some flat spots. It's got some hills. It's got some valleys. It's got some bottom land. It's got some streams and so forth. And we let them go where they think it's best in these kinds of conditions.
Well, I was I'm always watching the weather, and for some reason I have Springfield punched into my little weather finder on my iPhone. And I was looking at Springfield weather this past week, and it said it was going down to 3 degrees. And then you corrected me and said, no, it got down to 1. How would you like to be born from 100 degrees into almost zero environment? Not a happy little birth, but the calf survived. That's nature. And cows are a lot smarter. We have a tendency as being human beings to look at everything versus the intelligence quotient of human beings. I think we can learn a lot from animals because they know what to do, and a lot of times they don't need our help. So, I'm just fascinated. By the way, I was thinking about this last night after you and I had talked. You consider yourself to be a farmer, right?
Yes.
Well, but you raise beef cows.
Right.
You know what they call that down here in Texas? Ranching.
I can't wait to hear.
They call it ranching.
What was that?
They call it ranching.
Yeah.
You're a rancher, not a farmer.
Well, actually, cows are really not the main product. Cows are kind of a secondary product. What we really do is we raise grass. We grow grass.
And you're doing a good job since you got your manure spreader.
Yeah. Well, no, seriously, we grow grass on this farm. I guess you could consider us a grass farm. And we grow grass on the best land that we have on the farm. So, for example, the Ozarks has hills and rocks, and the trees grow where the rocks are, and the grass grows where there are fewer rocks. And we grow the grass to feed the cows, and the cows we can sell to the marketplace. However, what we could do is forget the cows, and we could grow grass, roll it up into bales of hay, and just sell the bales of hay. But we kind of like having the cows because they actually help us. We have a synergistic relationship with the cows. We take care of them, and then they mow the grass. They mow it down. They fertilize it with their manure, and when we unroll rolls of hay, as you have done on the farm, what happens is the seeds that are in the hay get stepped into the ground by the cow's hooves, and they reseed for us. So our farm is getting better and better. The grass is looking better and better every year. So it's a great relationship we have with the cows, and that's why we don't beat them. They're part of the family. They're part of the operation. Without them, we'd be not doing so well.
Yeah, I have a few cows in my family as well.
Do you?
Yeah, did I call into the wrong show? Is this the old Derry Brownfield show, or is this R.F.C. Mayberry or something? There's a lot going on, Diddy. Let's get off the farm.
Yeah. Derry Brownfield was going to be a keynote speaker at our Expo #1. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yes, I did.
And a very sad story, and I'll share it with the class. I was talking to Derry Brownfield, and I really enjoyed listening to him. I listened to him on shortwave radio, and he's just very informative. And I thought, boy, it'd be really neat to go see his farm. He had about 1,000 cows on his farm. Pretty big farm for by Missouri standards. And he agreed to come to the expo, and he was going to bring his wife, and he was going to be a featured speaker at Expo #1, let's say 6 years ago or so. And I got a letter in the mail, and it was typed on his stationery. It was hand-typed on his IBM Selectric typewriter on a Friday. And it was mailed. It was the last thing he did on Friday's business, sending me that letter saying that he and his wife were looking forward to being at the expo. He mailed it, went home, and died. And that's absolutely the truth. And it was so very sad.
He had one of the best shows. There were so many, farmers, ranchers. There were people of every stripe that listened to his show because he was just a common sense, good old boy. You couldn't get any better than Derry. You really couldn't. He had a life's experience. He knew what was going on. And, I always enjoyed him. He asked me one time, I guess he had a cabin, and they had a black stachy mold problem. So I had sent him an aeronizer. I said, Derry, I said, what do you plan on doing? He says, well, I don't know, ripping stuff out, replacing. And I said, wait a minute. Let me send you over one of these aeronizers. And he put it in his cabin, shut the doors, left that thing on full. In 2 days' time, all of his black stachy mold was gone. And shortly after that, as you said, he was going to come to your expo, and I wanted to talk to him about it, and he had passed away. And it was a sad day for everybody because, as I said, he meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think one of the things that was special about Derry Brownfield was he connected us with our past. And what I mean by that, past in regard to saner days, where men were men, women were women, and cars were cars. And that was part of the attraction. And a lot of people say, well, the more progressive thinking, that's yesteryear. We're here today. We're moving forward. Well, there's a lot of people that have had hope and change, and they were desperate enough to elect somebody like Barack Obama looking for it. But we'd seen what progressive politics has done for this country. They've stepped so far outside of the Constitution in their new brand of democracy, Vince. Anything goes. Whatever they can convince the majority of the people of, that's the new law. And the rest of us, how did Hillary Clinton put it? Us deplorables. These are the people that, they're just that. They're deplorable. They don't fit in with the new America. And now we have Donald Trump coming up here, in 10 days to be inaugurated? And I've gotten the inside word here that there's been 6 demonstration permits that were issued in Washington, D.C. for Donald Trump's inauguration, and they're going to be allowed free reign. Unlike us, when we go to a political wrangling of sorts, they were put in special little pens far away from anything, so we couldn't cause disruption, or some news media couldn't pick up a placard, or, God forbid, one of the liberal medias would stick a microphone in somebody's face for a comment. But it's going to be interesting come 10 days in Washington, D.C.
John Stadtmiller is with us, and you can listen to John live 6 to 8, Monday through Friday, republicbroadcasting.org. We'll be right back. So John Stadtmiller, I was traveling. I was on the East Coast, and I decided that I would broadcast live while I was traveling. And I just had an iPad, and normally I don't use the iPad, but our family has one, so I had this with me. And I decided that I should probably get a headset and make it better quality broadcast. So I went into Best Buy, and I looked around, and this guy came up to me, and he said, can I help you? And I said, well, I'm looking for a headset. Here's what I'm trying to do. He said, okay. So he found this electric green looking thing, and he said, this is really great. And it was pretty expensive. And I said, no, first of all, I can't wear that electric green thing. And, it's not, it doesn't represent what I do. It looked like a child might wear it, that color green. And I said, well, here's one by Plantronics, and it was $19 and change. I thought that would work just fine. I liked the headphone, I liked the earpiece, I liked the way the microphone came out and it was adjustable and so forth. So I said, well, do I pay for it up front, or what do I do? He said, well, just come on the back here and you can pay for it at the television area and home entertainment area. And I said, okay, great. So I paid for it, got the receipt, and I was walking out the door with it, and I got stopped by Best Buy's security enforcement people. And the guy said, I need to see your receipt. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I just bought it back there, and I named the guy, And I said, I had a really nice experience until just now. And he said, I need to see your receipt. I said, I'm not going to do it. It's mine. This is my property. I paid for it. I was on your cameras. Go check them out. I'll wait. But I'm not, and if you want to call the police, I'll wait for that too. But I'm not going to show you my receipt. It's mine. I'm not going to show you what's in my pockets. I'm not going to show you what's in my car. I am not going to do it. And he got really concerned. And I said, well, tell you what, why don't you call your manager? And he said, well, I already signaled for him and he's on his way over. So 2 other guys show up. And there's 3 of them, 3 against 1. I explained to them, we're not going anywhere with this deal. I said, however, I just may want to return it. And so the manager comes up and he said, can I help you? What's the problem? And I said, well, I don't think there is a problem. It's just that your guys here don't believe that I paid for this. He said, well, have a nice day. And he let me go. Now, because of that kind of experience, I don't go to Best Buy. I don't like Best Buy. But here's the latest thing that you and I were talking about on the phone.
Before you continue, I got something to add to that. I had a little problem down here in Austin with Fry's Electronics. I don't know if you have any of those up in Missouri, but it's
I've been to Fry's
electronics store.
I've been to Fry's in Nevada and California.
Okay, so you're familiar with them. And, of course, they have the receipt checkers at the door. And everybody that walks through there shows the receipt, they look in their bags, and then they thank them, and then they're on their way. And one day I'd had enough of that, and I just looked at them and I said, no, I'm not going to show you a receipt. Well, sir, it's store policy. I said, it might be your policy, but it's against the law to do what you're doing. And they stopped and they looked at me and, of course, called the manager over. The manager had a quiet word with them, and just like you got from Best Buy's manager, thank you, sir, have a nice day. Well, they can do that. You can be contracted into letting a store check your receipt if it's a membership type of store, like some of the big box stores. Think of one. Off the top of my head,
Sam's Club. I was Sam's Club. I was there yesterday, and they checked my receipt.
Well, yeah,
and when they were
that's part of the policy, but that's also part of the agreement because you joined a club or you have a membership, and they set the rules. And that is part and parcel of your contract, if you will, with that store. But people have to understand that just because of a Kmart or, whatever, Best Buy wants to check your receipt on a purchase you just made, you have every right to look at them, smile, and say no thank you, and keep walking. And here's the rub. If they do try to detain you, if they do call the cops on you, you've got them. You've got a lawsuit against their company. I just want to let people know that.
Yeah, I was at Sam's Club yesterday, and they wanted to check my receipt, and I said, sure, because I've agreed to that. But I haven't agreed to it at Best Buy, Kmart, the Chinese factory outlet, Harbor Freight Tools. I haven't agreed to it there. Let's talk a little bit more about Best Buy and why I don't go there anymore when we come back. Plus, I don't make any bones about it. I don't shop at Best Buy, but I think John Stadtmiller and I are going to continue informing you about the tie that Best Buy has with the federal government. And there's a post on the internet. It's at PennLive.com. Headline is, Ties Between Best Buy's Geek Squad, FBI Probed in Child Porn Case. Let me just read a little bit about this just to give you a feel for what's going on. A giant Best Buy repair shop in Brooks, Kentucky. Geek Squad technicians work on computers owned by people across the country, delving into them to retrieve lost data. Over several years, a handful of those workers have notified the FBI when they see signs of child pornography, earning payments from the agency. That means they would earn money from the FBI. The existence of the small cadre of informants within one of the most popular computer repair services was revealed in the case of a California doctor who's facing federal charges after his hard drive was flagged by a technician. The doctor's lawyers found that the FBI had cultivated 8 confidential human sources in the Geek squad over a 4-year period, according to a judge's order in the case, with all of them receiving some payment. Now, there's concerns about privacy, and here's the point, and John, I'd love to hear your comment. How is it possible that Best Buy would have this operation going on without the blessing, without the approval, without the support and endorsement of top management? How is that possible?
It's not possible. And they're not very forward-thinking individuals, because how many people, once they find that out through the fake news, through programs such as yours, GCN Network, shows such as mine, the National Intel Report, Republic Broadcasting, we're just haters, and we're purveyor of fake news. So God help the upper management, you'll probably see a CEO replacement next year because they're going to discover their sales are down. The snitch squad, just call them, not the geek squad, call them the snitch squad.
Mm-hmm. Nobody likes a snitch. Now, of course, we are not in support of child pornography. However, we are also not in support of the government paying people to be snitches. I believe that Verizon is on the take. I believe that T-Mobile, I believe that all of the cell phone companies, AT&T, Microshaft, Google, I believe all of them are involved and complicit in spying on we the villagers with the technology that they sell us. They sell us this technology, and then we go and use it. So Best Buy, I'm not going to shop there. I absolutely am not going to shop there. And if I find something on the internet that's a really good price and I really need it, and somewhere it says Best Buy, sold to you by Best Buy, I'm going to go someplace else.
Well, and if your listeners, Vince, think that this is an isolated incident, I draw their attention. This story came out of the Chicago Tribune, and there's a law now on the books that, hairstylists, barbers, nail technicians, etc., are going to be forced to spy on their customers. Now, everybody gets haircuts. Women go to beauty parlors to get the do, and the guys have to go get their hair cut to look halfway presentable, and women go have their nails done and pedicures and manicures done, and they're like kind of the bartenders of the sober world. People converse with their hairdressers like you would converse with a close friend, but you're kind of assured that, this is not for publication, and they're not going to go blabbering to other customers. If you have any sense about you, you're not going to go blabbing to any other customers of what you learned from a previous customer, let's say. Well, this is what's going on, and this is going to affect 88,000 of these beauticians in Illinois. And the guy that came up with this wonderful idea, Representative Fran Hurley, said that there's an openness, a freeness, and a relationship the last years or decades between the client and the cosmetologist. They're in a position to see something that may or may not be right. Now, here's part of the bill. It says that hairstylists, barbers, cosmetologists, hair braiders, and nail technicians in Illinois will receive an hour of mandated abuse prevention training as part of the licensing process. The law does not require them to report any violence, and it shelters them from any liability. Now, that's 88,000 more individuals who will be able to have conversations with family and friends and clients, and that raises awareness about domestic violence and sexual assault. That'll be and by the way, this is a federal program going into the states. The Illinois law will be enforced by the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, a federally run department. And if you guess the DHS has something to do with it, give yourself a gold star. DHS runs the Illinois Department of Human Services, which handles domestic abuse. So it's not going to only be the geeks that come into your house, or if you take your computer to Best Buy and they discover porn on your hard drive, which, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I've gotten emails that look completely legitimate in my email. I go open it up, and it's a porn site. Now, is that going to be on my hard drive? you bet your sweet bippy it's going to be. So, Big Brother, I mean, it's Total Awareness Network, and they've managed to wedge this in under the guise of the government, the nanny state, there to protect everybody. And what we're talking about here, Vince, really overall, is kind of a cultural deficiency that's going on that somehow, some way, either federal people or state people in your legislature or in the U.S. Congress, doesn't matter, that they have the ability and they have the right to come in and snoop on your private goings-on. And this, look, this has gotten to the point where we're not the best or the strongest or the freest nation on earth again. How many times have you heard that over and over and over again? We're down to a point where it's drop a dime on everybody. Now, I don't know if the cosmetologists have figured this one out, or if they're going to be required to post a sign, anything that you may say seated in this chair may be used in a court of law against you. What's that going to do for your tips if you think the person that's cutting your hair is going to drop a dime on you? Or maybe they'll just do it for the heck of it because you don't tip enough and they just want to, just cause you some trouble. Hence, you cannot sue the company that runs the cosmetology outlets. You can't do any of that. They're free and clear. So we have dime droppers directly connected to the Department of Homeland Security. Well, I remember just the other day, who was that guy that shot 5 people down in Fort Lauderdale Airport? This guy had walked into an FBI office. They had taken his gun away from him a month before because he said he had Al-Qaeda in his head talking to him. He was a guy that received a Medal of Honor for fighting terrorists, and he specifically goes down to Fort Lauderdale Airport, pulls out a gun that he'd actually shipped on a Delta plane down there, goes into a bathroom, pulls out the gun, and walks through the baggage area, shooting people randomly. No rhyme, no reason, but the FBI admitted that that's why he went to Fort Lauderdale, that they couldn't have seemed to have gotten a clue up in Anchorage, Alaska, that there might be something wrong with this guy. It's right there in front of their faces. They have all the resources. They have all the information. But they can't seem to do their job, so they're going to rely on the public to dime drop on people. This is, God, Vince, I can't even tell you. Hey, every morning I wake up anymore in this country, I'm expecting something else draconian coming down the pike. And it's getting to the point where the anger is seething. I pretty much have it under control right now, for the moment. But it's coming to the point where enough is enough. And if people, and I hate to break it to your audience, yeah, it's a good thing Hillary Clinton is not going to be president of the United States for the next 4 years. But they must understand that Donald Trump does not walk on water. And that everything that he does to try to turn back the tide of the police state in America is going to be met with so much resistance. Not only from the Democrats that seem to hate him because he's a misogynist, he's a black hater, he's a this hater, he's a that hater, he's a divisionary in the country, and oh my God, they're just throwing fits. There's only going to be so much that this guy is going to do. And I hate to break it to people, the reason why this country is in the shape that it is right now, yes, much attributed to the politicians and their good wishes for the security of our country, but when it comes down to it, we have the country right now that we have allowed to devolve to this point. It has been our responsibility, and we have failed.
I'm glad you mentioned that, John. And one of the things I wanted to ask you during this hour is, what do you think our role in the alternative media was in the deselection of Hillary Clinton as CEO of corporate USA? What do you think we did? Do you think we actually were successful in waking people up? Do you think we were part of Donald Trump being selected? Because if you look at a map of the United States of who who supported Hillary is maybe, in terms of real estate, maybe at the most, 10% of the real estate of the United States of America. Do you think we had a role in it, or were we kidding
first
ourselves?
of all, the mantra that was kicked around once Donald Trump won the presidency was that, well, Hillary Clinton had the popular vote. She had 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. What's wrong with you people? Well, if you take a look at that map that you're talking about, it was centered around high population areas. New York, L.A., states like California, like New York. And they forgot about the country that lies between the East and the West Coast. Donald Trump flat out won that election through the electoral process, and all of a sudden the electoral process became the enemy. That we should have a popular vote for the presidency of the United States.
Class John Stadtmiller is with us, and he is the godfather of alternative radio, the owner of republicbroadcasting.org. And if you'd like to listen to John Stadtmiller, he broadcasts live Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time. And John Stadtmiller is kind enough to broadcast USA Prepares on Republic Broadcasting.
And I might add,
I don't know
I'm
of
shocked
any
at
other
the amount of ads that are in your show. But the powers that be over at GCN would be interested to know that when we rerun your show on Republic Broadcasting, that we don't insert our own commercials. It comes over just as the content that everybody hears your show every day on GCN.
Yeah, I was just telling our engineer that off the air during the commercial break. And John, I really want to thank you because I don't know, literally, I don't know of another broadcast that crosses networks the way USA Prepares does. And you're very kind to air Genesis's commercials on Republic Broadcasting along with this broadcast, USA Prepares. I'm delighted and honored and flattered to be on Republic Broadcasting as well as Genesis. So I want to thank you very much. Tom in Baltimore, welcome.
Vince, in that intro, I'm just curious before I get to my comment real quick, is that you crying over the state of our union, or is that Captain John Reagan crying because he's always frustrated that he never has enough time to finish his report?
The answer is yes.
You know, you can just hear the frustration in the poor guy's voice because he never has enough time, and you can just, he's so frustrated.
He is, and his frustration is focused right at Vincent Finelli. He prepares all week, and then he doesn't have enough time to say all the things that he wants to say.
It's so
and I'm sure he's listening right now. When
you hear that frustration in his voice, it's so tempting to call to throw him off, but I restrain myself.
Well, and we do not get a lot of calls at usaprepares.com, and I have a feeling, and I've asked the owner of the network, I've asked the program director, I've asked our engineer, why is that? Is it nobody's listening or what? And the answer is no. It's not that no one's listening. It's because they don't want to interrupt us. I think that's really, really the answer. But Tom, do you have a comment for John Stadtmiller?
I do. I completely agree with his comments. In fact, it's rather ironic. I just hung up with Congressman Darrell Iss's office. I was on the phone with a couple people from his staff for about an hour and a half. And, I've been frustrated. And he's right when he says that Trump, of course, is better than Hillary. We knew what we'd get with her. Corruption, dating back to Watergate. With Mr. Trump, we hope for the best. We hope he will not betray. He will not steal from us. And he will not try to fundamentally change the nature of our constitutional republic. And I think we can count on that to happen. However, at the end of the day, the true change is, or the impetus and the effort to make that true change, it lies with each individual American. And my big concern right now is that our republic is so steeped in corruption and in such a state of necrosis that seems to grow exponentially year after year that I worry that we simply don't have enough people who will take an interest in saving this republic. It seems like many don't realize or care about the dire straits we're in. Certainly they seem ignorant to the fact that if this republic dies, our way of life dies with it.
John Stadtmiller, any quick comments?
I'll tell you what, we got a break coming up. I'm assuming this is top of the hour break, and I'm assuming I'm around for the next hour.
Actually, no. I'm sorry to say that. I've got Scotty Kilmer coming up next hour, but I'll tell you what, if you want Friday, we can do Friday. So let me know.
No, I'm not getting up early twice in a row in 1 week for you. And Tom, sorry, I don't have enough time to make a sane comment on your comment.
Well, I think we're in agreement with our concern,
Yeah. Well, here's one way of looking at it. I think Donald Trump realizes that if he takes advantage of us, we're not going to his hotels. Business will be down. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for being with us. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. And for those of you new to USA Prepares, I wanted to share with you that there are over 200 of us here and experts in various areas, innovators, dentists, medical doctors, engineers, surgeons, broadcasters, CEOs, editors, authors, programmers, and I am delighted to introduce to you your newest instructor, Scotty Kilmer. Scotty Kilmer, I found him on YouTube. And how many views? Well, 154, not 154,000, 154 million views. He's got 49 years, over 49 years of experience as an auto mechanic, and he cuts right to the chase. Welcome, Scotty Kilmer.
Howdy. All the way from Texas.
Scotty, let me just share with our worldwide broadcast classroom. You know, we teach a class here at USA Prepares, and I found you because I had a message that came up on the dash of my old Chevy truck, a 2004 1500 Silverado with a V6 engine in it, and it came up with a catalytic converter efficiency code P0420. And I looked it up. I bought a scanner, and I think most of our class should consider buying a scanner. You can get them inexpensively, and we can talk about that in a couple of minutes. But you talked about what that could mean and how to fix a problem with a catalytic converter not functioning properly. And you said all you do is you pour this.
Unfortunately, cars have gotten so sophisticated. As you're driving down the road in your car, it does what's called mode 6 checking like every minute and a half. So it checks everything in the car every minute and a half, and it goes back over. And if it finds a flaw that exists for more than 1,000th of a second, it's going to trip a code. That particular code means that the catalytic converter is working at less than 95% efficiency. Okay, well, I'm 63, and I don't know if I even work at 60% efficiency anymore myself. But that's a very common code, and sometimes, as stupid as it sounds, I've had customers get it, and I'll say, what are you buying? They say, oh, we're buying this cheap gas. I said, go to Shell and buy a tank of high-test gas. They say, well, and the light goes off. Because it has to do with how efficient the car is burning the fuel. And a lot of times, it's as easy as changing the fuel or adding some good fuel injector cleaner in, and then it makes it work good. It's all done by the oxygen sensors that measure how much oxygen, residual oxygen, is in the exhaust. And if there's too much, it means it's running inefficient. And the computer then tries to make the car run lean if it's running rich, or rich if it's running lean. And it keeps switching back and forth until it gets it just right. And, there's still a lot of stuff that people can try themselves before they go out, and some of these cars, catalytic converters, will be $800-900 a piece. And, you don't want to throw that kind of money away just on a whim.
Right, you are. Well, you, in your video, you recommended pouring a full gallon of this easily obtainable liquid.
Yeah.
And that's lacquer
Yeah,
thinner.
lacquer thinner. You want the lacquer thinners that they use to thin oil-based paints, because that's the best one. And as long as you dilute it 1 part thinner to like 9 parts gasoline, it doesn't hurt anything. And often we'll do a real good job and clean them out, and it'll burn the residual crap that's in them and make them work again. There's a lot of commercially available ones too that are cleaners, but I mean, you got to use your sense. If you pay $12 for a little 12-ounce bottle of something, really a gallon of lacquer thinner is going to be a lot more concentrated and have a better chance of cleaning it out than a little bottle of stuff will.
Yeah. And so what you recommended, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I did this, and I'll share my results with the class. So in this 2004 full-size pickup, 26-gallon fuel tank, I waited till it was about half a tank down, and so I had about a little less than half a tank of fuel in it. I added a gallon, which is what you're talking about, 9 parts gasoline or so, 10 parts gasoline to 1 part lacquer thinner, and I ran it. And what I did was I monitored live the oxygen sensor readings. Actually, my son was behind the wheel, and I was watching the readings of the oxygen sensors, and I could see that within about a half hour, the readings were getting better and better and better, and that catalytic converter was cleaning up. I
if you're going to do that just sitting there, it's best to rev it up to like 2,500 RPMs and put a big fan in front of the car's radiator, and that'll help it work better, because at faster speeds, it's going to be burning a little bit hotter and cleaning the impurities out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was actually a live test behind the wheel on the road, doing 55 miles an hour.
Yeah, that'll work too, as long as you go fast enough.
Mm-hmm. And what I experienced is that it was, some people might just replace the oxygen sensors. It's the problems with the oxygen sensor. No, if you really look into it and you do some research, you'll find out that the oxygen sensor is doing what it's supposed to do and report failures that it senses. So it's not the messenger.
Sensors will last forever because most of them are platinum-based, and the platinum is never eroded away. The only reason they generally go bad is some companies just manufacture them poorly, and the heating elements of them burn out, and then they have triple coat for the heating elements. Or if you got old junker that burns a lot of oil, the oil burning will clog up them and make them go bad.
Mm-hmm. Interesting video that you have. You talk about how to find a vacuum leak on an engine, and you do it with a 99-cent cigar. Would you share that with us, please?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a professional mechanic, too, and I've got a smoke machine that costs $1,000, but I'm cheap. I didn't buy it. I used to be on CBS TV, and people would always give me things in the hope that I'd use their equipment and they'd get free TV ads off it. But the whole idea is, when you got a vacuum leak, vacuum, of course, is negative pressure. It sucks in and not out, so you can't see anything. So when you shut the car off, you just have to take off a big hose, like the vacuum hose to the brake booster, blow some cigar smoke in it. Wherever there's a leak in the system, you'll see smoke starting to come out. Of course, the machines that I have that cost a bunch of money, they actually have volumetric gauges on them, and you can set the pressure at a certain PSI. They're a lot more complex. But actually, just blowing smoke in with the engine turned off, you're going to see leaks come out. The reason I said cigars, because cigars make an awful lot of smoke. So that's a good way of doing it. But I've been at guys, and they told me it worked fine. They go out, and they would get those party fogging machines, and they would just hook them up to a funnel, and then have that go into the hose, and that works too. If you got one of those fog machines, they work too.
Mm-hmm. And class, there's a link on the website, usaprepares.com. If you go to page 1, you'll see a link introducing Scotty Kilmer as an instructor. And if you go to the instructor's page, you'll see that there's a link to his website as well as his YouTube channel. Over 154 million views. That is like if one person were to just watch one of Scotty Kilmer's videos, that'd be half the population of the United States. That is huge. Scotty, do you know where your ranking is in YouTube viewers?
I have no idea. I don't even care. I'm having fun helping people out. I figure that over the years, I've been doing it on YouTube since 2007. I have saved people, and I'm not making this up, billions of dollars. Because, one, mechanics charge about $100 to $140 an hour labor, so that alone could be it. But I also have videos like why not to buy a Mercedes and BMWs. And I probably lost them thousands of sales, and considering that each one of those cars costs, $60,000 to $100,000, there's probably another $1 billion I've saved people. It's hard to find honest advice nowadays. That's just the way the world is. Everybody knows people have angles here or there. They got advertisers they want to please and all that stuff. But that's what I love about YouTube is all the money I make on YouTube from advertising is generic advertising. I have nothing to do with it. It's just there. They had ads for Hillary. They had ads for Trump when they were running the election. So I don't have to please anybody. I can tell people the truth and help people out. They see it's true. They tell their friends, and then everybody's happy. It's kind of interesting where you can use the internet to help everybody out, and no one's the loser except people that make crappy products, and they deserve to be losers anyways.
Well, you take aim at Mercedes, and I mentioned to you off the air that we own several used old Mercedes-Benz vehicles. And I've got to tell you that I had a smile on my face when you were talking about, why would anybody spend $1,100 for a shock absorber? And that's for one corner of the car. There are 4 corners of the car. So you're looking at $4,400 plus labor to put in 4 shock absorbers on some of these Mercedes. And you are absolutely right. It's insanity. And only a few people can do that. And what happens is the resale price of Mercedes is directly related to the insane cost of ownership to keep those things on the road.
You can pick up a used Mercedes for hardly nothing. Well, you know that because you're buying the older ones. But that's a different ball game. If you want to buy an old one and fart around with it as a toy, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what you're getting into. If you buy something for $2 or $3 grand, you don't have much to lose because, like you said, even if it gets to be too much for you, you can always part the car out and get your money because there's guys that have them and they want parts off of them, and the parts go for a reasonable amount of money. But the actual buying anything that's late model, it's just foolhardy on anybody's behalf because the parts cost too much. They break all the time, and they're deliberately. Mercedes is kind of a stinky company. There are companies like Kia that I'm not in love with Kia cars, but they give all the information out to people when to fix cars. You get a Kia, you can get all the information free from Kia Motors because they want people to be able to fix their cars. Where Mercedes goes by the letter of the law, and if you get an OBD scanner and plug it into a Mercedes, you are going to get only the information that by law has to do with anti-pollution, and all the other stuff, you got to buy a star tester that costs $25 grand to access that stuff. And they deliberately do that, Well, the other manufacturers, hey, they got a lot more information out for fixing cars with a regular handheld scan tool because they're not out to totally rip people off like the luxury car market guys are.
Class, now you know why I love Scotty Kilmer's YouTube videos and his information. He cuts right to the chase, and he tells you the truth. We'll be right back, and I'd like to talk about should we buy OBD2 scanners for our own use. We'll be right back. Class, you're listening to the wisdom of a 63-year-old mechanic with 49 years of experience, turning wrenches, looking at electronics, reading computer screens, and so forth. And Scotty, in that light, I've decided that these check engine lights just keep coming on unexpectedly as I travel in our vehicles, and I decided to buy an OBD number 2 scanner, onboard diagnostics version 2 scanner. What is your opinion about buying one of those, and what do they cost?
Well, it's a great idea for people. It depends on how far they want to go, because you can buy really inexpensive wireless jobs that'll work with your smartphone. Some of those things are like $20. The really good ones are about $80 that go on your phone, and they do quite a bit. Some of them even do Mode 6 data. If you want a handheld one, with all these Chinese knockoff stuff now. You can get a Chinese knockoff one for $29 on Amazon that actually does live data and quite a bit of stuff. And if you're real serious about fixing your car, you can get stuff like Actron makes good ones. They were bought by OTC, which were bought by Bosch, but they still make them. And $200 one of those, I actually use it every day as a professional mechanic because they've got so much information and so much you can learn about. And the advantage is they work on every car sold in the United States from 1996 upwards. So, even if you think, oh, I don't want to buy a $200 one, hey, maybe you and 3 or 4 of your friends will patch together. You're not going to use it every day, and you can just share one if you want a better one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But will the $20 ones tell you basic information that will get you started?
Oh, of course, they all give basic information. They'll all give you the trouble codes and the trouble code numbers, and even the $20 ones now will give you a reasonable amount of live data. It's not going to give you Mode 6 data or anything that's really in-depth stuff, but it give you, I've seen $20 ones that they'll have maybe 36, 38 different data streams that will allow you to look at. So it's not all that bad. Like everything else, everything's getting cheaper and cheaper. I've got years ago when I was on TV, I got a borescope from a company that made them for airplanes, and the borescope was like $7,500 for this digital borescope. I bought one on Amazon as a laugh for $18.95 last year, and I tried it out, and I plugged it into my laptop. The thing made videos, took pictures, and it was $19. So things are getting really cheap that actually work these days.
Scotty, it's interesting you say that because about a week ago, I just ordered one on eBay. And this is a borescope with LED illumination, and it has an on-off, like a snapshot button. You just hit this button on the cable, and it's USB. It's $10.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and it's insane.
I'm all
I
excited.
realized that most of them have stolen software because the one that I got came with one of those mini DVDs that you'd flip in a laptop that I downloaded the software, but, and I realized it's probably stolen from someplace, but, I bought it legally through Amazon, so, I don't care. Mm-hmm. And it works. Mine even takes videos, and it has illuminated LED and everything, and it had a 36-foot cable on it because I thought, hey, my other ones that I have only have like a 4-foot cable. And I thought, maybe I don't look at my sewer system. I live in a really old house. And I can snake it down the sewer and see where there's roots coming in. And you can't beat it for, $18.
You're absolutely right. And it's great for those things that you really can't see. And some of them come with an attachment. And this thing is like the size of a cigarette butt on the end of a thin cable. That's about what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
You
can look backwards or sideways, and some of them come with little magnetic ones so you can pick up stuff, and some of them even have little claws on them so you can grab things and pull them out. Like when they do one of those kidney stone jobs like I had done a couple of years ago, where they stick it up the urethra and then they grab the pieces and pull them out. They tell you not to use them on people, though. I don't think they're sterile,
Scotty, we're talking about some of the tricks of the trade, and I've got a question for you. That here's a practice that I use, but it's absolutely positively not recommended by the automobile manufacturers. So, what I do is and my grandfather taught me this back in the 1960s. I figured that we take our wheels on and off. We have a Dodge Cummins turbo diesel. I believe that since 1999, these wheels, each one of them, has come off 50 times, either come off or put on 50 times. The nuts have been loosened and tightened at least 50 times. And I'd like to talk about a practice that I do, and I'd like to get your professional opinion when we come back. Class, Scotty Kilmer's with us, and I'm really looking forward to asking him this question. So my grandfather taught me this back in the 1960s, and we were rotating the tires on his old Ford car, and he put a little bit of grease on the stud and on the face of the lug nut that would attach to the stud. And the idea was so that the wheel nuts would not wear out as quickly by rotating tires as they would if you put them on dry. And of course, the manufacturers say absolutely don't do that. So, Scotty, here's what I do, and I'd love to hear your opinion. So I either use copper coat, which is like copper, very small particles of copper mixed with oil. It comes in a little jar, about 8 ounces, and I put that on the threads, and I put on the face, the contact face of the lug nuts. And then I torque the wheels by hand when I tighten them up, and I go in a star pattern in 3 or 4 torquing rotations where I increase the torque, and ultimately get up to about 100 pounds. What are your thoughts on the use of that in that procedure?
Oh, yeah, no, that's perfectly acceptable because you're basically using anti-corrosion stuff, and that's good. You don't want to go and get like wheel bearing grease and put it on because it will have a tendency of having them get looser as you're driving down the road. But if you're using that copper coat stuff, that's anti-corrosion. And that will keep them from corroding, and they won't, they're not going to get stuck, and then you're not going to strip them when you either put them on or take them off. That's as long as you use the anti-corrosion coating, that's good. Now, one thing that I always warn people about in other aspects of it is like spark plugs in your engine. When I was a kid, we used to put anti-corrosion lubricant on the spark plugs before we put them in. But you don't do that on any modern cars because the modern cars, the spark plugs that you buy already have the coating plated onto the spark plug. And if you do that on a modern spark plug, believe it or not, even if you use a torque wrench, you won't torque it correctly. It'll give you the incorrect torque. So on the spark plugs, you don't want to do that. But on anything that's just external, like lug nuts, anything that you plan on taking on and off, it's a good idea to use some anti-corrosion before you put it on, especially if you live someplace up north or by salt water where you're going to get a lot of salt corrosion. That's definitely needed there, or you're going to have problems.
Great information. Thank you for answering that question. Scotty, originally spark plugs had a center electrode and a ground electrode. And then over time, marketeers have said, 2 electrodes is better than 1. Then they said, well, you know what? Split fire is a better way to go, where the ground electrode was shaped in a V. And then they said, well, there's a U-groove by Denso, and that's better. And then in that same time, even before that, Bosch came out with, 2 electrodes on the side, then 4. And then pretty soon, it's like the more electrodes, the better. But I don't subscribe to that. Do you?
No, because anybody who understands electricity and physics, an electrical spark is going to jump to the nearest conductive part, period. So it's always going to fire on the same electrode until that gets a little bit worn, then it would fire on another electrode. Now, the only advantage of those 4 electrodes systems are that they would last a little bit longer because you had 4 electrodes that could wear down instead of 1. But that's been far surpassed by the modern iridium plugs because the iridium hardly erodes at all. I have seen Chevy 350 V8 engines that had iridium plugs on it with 200,000 miles, never been changed. They still ran like a clock, and when I pulled one out and measured the gap was only 3 or 4 thousandths of an inch bigger than it originally was, and they can go up to 10 before you have to replace them. So that you don't even need that anymore. Now, those things are just kind of a joke. And I even noticed that at the local AutoZone that I go to, they don't even sell those 4 electrode ones anymore. I asked the guy, I said, what do you do with those? He said, oh, we're throwing them all away. We're not selling these anymore.
Well, Scotty,
gimmick, that's just the way that things go. People get ideas that, like magic spark plugs are going to get you better gas mileage. And I explain to people that if any of them actually do tests, what they're testing is they're testing their brand new spark plug against a worn out spark plug in an engine. Just like guys will say, you buy this air filter, you'll get more horsepower. It's a bunch of nonsense. You get more horsepower over an air filter that's clogged up with dirt, yes. But all air filters pretty much work the same. It's only a matter of how well they filter, and like a K&N oiled filter will filter a little bit better because it's an oiled filter. But you got to take care of them because if you live in a dusty area, it will clog up 10 times faster than a paper filter is, where a paper filter won't clog up as much and you can knock it against the bumper and get most of the dirt off and use it over. The oil filters, you got to take them out, you got to clean them, then you got to re-oil them, and if you oil them too much, then you might suck oil into the MAF sensor, and that could short off on your fuel injection system. So that's more something that a mechanic would mess with and not a regular person.
And I've done all that. I've gotten oil on the mass air sensor, and then I've had to clean that. You're absolutely right.
And you're lucky you
Scotty
didn't burn it out.
Yeah, right. Scotty
People
Kilmer,
don't know when
copper.
the MAF sensor cleans itself, it gets up to like 850 degrees. So it's going to burn that oil, and it'll burn the wire out, and then it won't work anymore.
Mm-hmm. And so what I use is an intake carburetor / mass air sensor cleaner. Do you recommend that or not?
Oh, yeah. As long as you do it correctly. You want to disconnect the battery because you don't want any electricity flowing through it. And after you clean it, you want to air dry it for an hour, or if you got a compressed air, you want to blow air over it for 3 or 4 minutes to get rid of all the residue. But it's perfectly fine to clean them when they get dirty, because they all get dirty. And I mean, Ford for a while said, "Oh, you can't clean our throttles suddenly because they're coated with Teflon. You wear the coating off." But really, the coating wore off over the years anyways. And a lot of times, it's better to clean all the coating off and then just clean it every once in a while, because any coating is going to wear off. Like, when I was a kid, everybody would polish their motorcycles and their cars all the time, and now a lot of them are actually. A coating is already on them. Like if you've got aluminum alloy wheels, most of them are coated, and they look shiny because there's a coating. And you'll notice when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they start to look bad because the coating's worn off. And if you really want them to look good, you got to take them to a place that will remove all the coating, sandblast them, and then recoat them, instead of just polishing the bare aluminum, which I like bare aluminum better myself, because you can just polish it, and it looks really shiny. Yeah, you got to polish it every once in a while, but that's part of the fun of messing around with machines.
I noticed that on your YouTube videos that you hop on a Triumph motorcycle. And this particular motorcycle that I see has a round headlight, it has spoked wheels, and it has an air-cooled engine. I've got a couple of motorcycles here at the farm, and I do not particularly like the looks of motorcycles that have the aluminum wheels. I like the spoked wheels. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, that's a late model Triumph. It's 2011. I had them when I was a kid. I had English bikes, BSA, Triumphs, Nortons, and I like the look. I like the style. It's classic. And I actually have never owned a water-cooled motorcycle because I don't like the extra complexity. I like a simple air-cooled motorcycle that's got some style to it. But I do have to say, with this modern Triumph, the fascinating things about it having spokes is I have no idea how they did it, but the modern Triumph spoked wheels are tubeless tires. They have spokes, but they don't have tubes inside.
Wow.
Somehow they've sealed the end of the spokes inside, and the tires are tubeless tires, because that's the only disadvantage of old-fashioned spokes are you got to have tubes. And, of course, if you get a nail with a tube, you got to take the tire off, you got to take it apart, then put another tube in, where with tubeless tires, you can fix them on the vehicle. You don't have to take them all apart.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about spark plugs before. There's copper core, platinum, iridium. What's your take on spark plugs? What is the definitive answer on spark plugs? What should we buy for our typical machines, or is it specific?
Basically, whatever your car came with, the original equipment style, that's what you want to go for. Now, I mean, if it's Japanese and it came with NGK plugs, you can put Nip and Denso plugs in. You can use Autolite plugs. It doesn't matter as long as it's the same heat range. And the guys in the store look it up and say, this one is configured for your engine. The iridium plugs are the best because they last the longest. They don't fire any better. They fire exactly the same, but they can last so long that most guys today are going to run iridium plugs just because you take most modern V6 engines. The evil swines that design them often have the back 3 cylinders under the intake manifold. So to change the spark plugs, you got to pull the intake manifold. And that's a big job. On some cars, it can take 4, 5, 6 hours to do. So you want to have a spark plug in there that might last a couple 100,000 miles versus one that if it's a copper plug, you're going to have to change it every 40, 50,000 miles. And that's a lot more work that you wouldn't have to do if you put an iridium plug in.
Well, I was looking at some of the plugs for this V6 4.3 liter Chevrolet pickup truck that we have here at the farm. Factory was iridium plugs, pulled them out 200,000 miles, a little over 200,000, 210,000 on the plugs, and they looked great. However, the gap was about 68 thousandths of an inch. And wow, I've never seen a spark plug gap that big. And I happen to have some copper core, the inexpensive plugs, and they're pre-gapped by the factory at 35 thousandths. Now, that plug is not as efficient at 35 thousandths and igniting as 65 thousandths, is it?
No, it won't. If yours originally came with a 60,000 gap, it was designed for that. And the firing mechanisms were designed for that. And you want to stick with that because that's what the thing was designed for. You don't want to start messing with something that's got different specifications on it. But as long as they're the same specs, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter if you bought AC Delco Iridium or NGK Iridium or Nippon Denso Iridium. It doesn't really matter. But I definitely would stick. You never want to go backwards. Now, you can go forwards if you got an old car and you want to put Iridium in them. Go ahead. They'll work perfectly fine. But, of course, most of the old cars, they were real easy to change the spark plug, so people really don't care one way or another.
Yeah, now it can be a problem. Now you might have to take the front wheel off.
Who wants to do all that? If you don't have to, don't, because they are well made. But on the other hand, when they do get worn, you want to change them, because I warn people, if you just say, it still runs okay, I'm just going to leave it, you will still want to check the gap, because if the gap gets too far, then the electrical system has to work too hard, and you might end up burning out your computer ignition system if it's jumping too far of a gap because it's worn too much. So even if it runs okay, you got 200,000-300,000 miles, just change them anyways.
Scotty Kilmer and I will be right back, and you can go to his YouTube channel, Scotty Kilmer, Kilmer. Link on the website, usaprepares.com, page 1, and also under the Instructors tab. We'll be right back talking about sealed transmissions. Class, I just wanted to share this with you that I only put people who I agree with on the air, and I absolutely positively agree with everything Scotty Kilmer has just said during this broadcast. And now we're going to talk about sealed transmissions. Mercedes says, or used to say, your transmission's sealed for life. Scotty, I think it's nonsense. What do you think?
Are sealed for life. The life of the transmission, when it breaks, that's the end of its life. Ask them how long their warranty is. I've had that argument with years for people. I'll say, okay, what's the warranty? Oh, well, it's got a 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. I said, well, heck, most cars, if you don't change the fluid in 60,000 miles, they'll still be working down the road. But if you're a guy like me, I got a Toyota Celica. It's got 250,000 miles on it. And, there's no way they're going to last that long without changing the fluid. Fluid gets dirty. You got a fluid floating around in metal gears. Pieces are going to wear off. You're going to have metal fragments. There's going to be fatigue. You got to change the fluid every once in a while. And the way they make them now is really kind of evil. Some of them, it's sort of like a Rube Goldberg puzzle trying to figure out how to even change and check the fluid. Get the special tool, warm it up, turn it here, put your scan tool on, see what this is. I mean, it's insane what they've done to make it so you can actually change them. So most guys just say, heck, I'll just leave it in. And then when they burn out, as they all do eventually, then they say, oh, well, you need a new transmission now, and you're not under warranty anymore.
Hey, why don't we expose the fraud about nitrogen in tires?
Oh, well, use your head. What? The air we breathe already is, mainly nitrogen anyway. What's it, 75, 79, I don't know, some percentage. So you're only adding a tiny little bit more nitrogen and getting rid of the oxygen and the trace elements. It really doesn't do that much. Now, race car drivers do it, and airplanes do too, because the air jets are way up in the air where it's freezing cold at 35,000 feet above, and it mainly has to do with contraction and expansion from heat, so it does work in jet airplanes, but we're not driving jet airplanes, we're driving cars on the ground, so, plain old air, and I think most people didn't get suckered by it. I had numerous guys contact me and say, oh, you need to buy this nitrogen generator to fill your customer's tires up with for, $1,500. I'm like, oh, what a stupid idea that is. Nobody seems to be pumping it that much anymore, though. I guess they realized people weren't that big of a sucker and that they're not, nobody's going for it anymore, except, I suppose, the guys that are driving Ferraris around and stuff still do it. No reason to, for most of us to put nitrogen
in our tires. And as Scotty said, air is 78% nitrogen, and you're only going to pick up, in terms of heat, delta, 0.4%. If you really ride it hard, 0.4%. Is that something that? Yeah. What about? Let's see. What else is a waste of money, Scotty? In your opinion, that people might be suckered into?
Gasoline is. Most cars these days are made to run on plain old regular pump gasoline, and if you buy high test gas, not only are you wasting your money, but a lot of the vehicles actually will end up carboning up because what people don't understand, that the more you pay for gasoline, the less explosive it is, because high compression engines have more compression before the gasoline is ignited. So they have to have gas that doesn't blow up as well. So, I mean, if you're going to make a Molotov cocktail, you'd want to use the cheapest gas you can because it would explode better. And if you put the gas that doesn't explode as well in the regular engine, you can actually get more carbon buildup in the engine. Now, vice versa, if you have a car with a high compression engine that's made for high test gas, if it's a modern car, that will actually run perfectly normal on regular gasoline. It will just lose some horsepower. I had a Mustang 4-cylinder turbo that I was road testing for Ford a month ago, and it put out like 320 horsepower on high test, 50 on regular gas. And it would run fine on both, but it would just have more horsepower with the blower that it had when it was using premium gas.
Last question in 20 seconds or less. What about fixing a leaking seal? Can we do it with an additive?
There are some additives that work. I use AT205 reseals made out of a company in Chicago, and it actually does oil seals. I put it in jacks, they stop leaking. I put them on rear main engine seals, form the engine, and it actually does work. A lot of them aren't, they're gimmicks. But this has no solids, it's just a liquid that's the polymer that helps rejuvenate rubber. And it actually does work. But a lot
Scotty, we're out of time. Scotty Kilmer Channel on YouTube. Thanks so much for being with us, Scotty.